All right, so I'm sitting right here with two of the heavy hitters in the industry. I am the Mortgage Line 824 on all platforms. I'm sitting with Alfred Galvan, who goes by the Real Estate Goat.
Meh.
I got Tony Serrano, not to be confused with Tony Soprano.
Tony the broker. Let's go, baby. Let's go.
Let's go. So today we're chopping it up and we're talking about systems in place and having all the tools but not knowing how to use the tools. And I want to start off with you, Alfred, because right now you're doing so much in the industry right now that is just so overwhelming for some, but an eye opener for all. So talk to us real quick about what systems in place that you have and how you're bringing value to the industry.
Great question, Jesse. So before we get into the systems, we need to talk about mindset.
Yes.
Right? There's a lot going on in this world, and I think being an entrepreneur, being an agent, people need to realize that no matter what's going on outside these walls, you control your own mindset. So I think that's a very powerful message. I always say you could have the best CRM, the best tools, the shiny agent syndrome, but your mindset needs to be right and corrected. So that's one thing that's very important. As far as systems, there's a process, right? You have to have the right CRM, the right follow-up strategy, and the right game plan. Like you said, are you failed to win or you're failed to lose, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I play the game, to win. But I also like my losses because every time I lose, I learn something. I don't see it as I don't take it as an L. I take it more like a W. I think what's happening right now is there's so much going on right now, and there's always the new object coming out, right? The new shiny
Right.
Gadget systems.
everything. Everything's AI and all this stuff. I think you just have to be the master of one thing only. And one thing I like to master first and foremost is my schedule. I like to schedule things out, have a foundation. Besides that, of course, my CRM. That's where I keep my leads, how I follow up with them, how I keep track of them. Of course, it's very important to have a lead tracker to know your KPIs. Where is the business coming from? And,
Right.
95% of my business is listings. I think when I got into this business, they say, if you're going to list, you need to last,
That's right.
right? I get it. Buyers are great, but buyers are seasonal, right? When the market's good, they go buy. When the market's bad, they don't buy. That's why I like to go after a certain niche, right? Because you get paid based on the problems you solve. But as far as systems, my system is Bold Trail, which AKA was KV Core. I still have my follow-up boss, but follow-up boss for me is more like a Rolodex, a digital Rolodex. So I like to have those two systems. A lot of people say, Alfred, why do you have two CRMs? That's just me. What works for me might not work for somebody else, but having systems, having the right mindset, and of course being around the right people with the same core values is super important. Because Jesse, you could have all the leads, the shiny objects, the follow-ups. You could have everything, but if you're surrounded by a bunch of turkeys and not eagles, they're gonna bring you down, man.
Your circle of influence.
Yeah,
is the main
so
factor.
if you tell me, man, there's always room for improvement, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to be a part of this and see how I can bring some value.
Right. And Tony, I know you. I work out with you once in a while in the gym. Not once in a while, almost every other day. There's times where you're running out of the gym because you have your daily planner already in motion. You're like, I got to get out of here by 9:00 and be on the phone, because if I don't and I get on the phone at 9:15, then that 9:15 will turn into 9:30. That 9:30 will turn into 10:00, and then eventually you think, I just don't got to do it today, and I'll do it tomorrow. Talk to me about your organization for the days that you're productive.
Well, it's key. I mean, just like Alfred said, it's all about mindset and schedule and being able to track your numbers, have a system in place where, you're up at X time, you're doing your meditation, affirmations, because once again, the morning routine is crucial, right? And what you feed your mind is what's going to flow out. So when you're prospecting or engaging with other people, they're going to feed off your energy and they're going to feed off your vibration and what you bring to the table. So you got to have systems in place. You got to have a schedule. You got to be able to role play. And as Alfred said, you can have all the gadgets in the world, but if your association isn't key, if you're not surrounded by lions, right, and you're not role playing, and you don't have the right mindset, right, and you're not doing those positive affirmations in the morning to get your mind right, then no matter what you do, there's always going to be an issue with your schedule, with your results, because at the end of the day, numbers don't lie, right?
Right.
We can all look across the table and look at what is the production, right? And regardless of what's going on in the world, well, high interest rates or the tariffs or the price of living is going up, there will always be excuses. But at the end of the day, it's about closing. Are you making it happen? There's people that are killing it in the business.
Right.
I know Alfred's killing it in the business. That's why this is part of my circle, and we learn and we grow from each other.
Of course.
So as you change, you have to adapt to the market.
Right.
And something that was key, that's very important, that has been said, is you have to adapt to technology and the market. And if you're not visible on social media, on your Google page, if you're not adapting to the change in technology, unfortunately, you will not make the transition that this market is headed to.
If you don't grow, you're going to die. That's just what it is. And I know every morning Tony will send me a page from a book that he reads, and I read them, and a lot of them I resonate with, but that's actually good. I thank you for that, bro, because every morning I do receive a page from the book that you read. Alfred, I don't care. It'll be like 5 a.m. Alfred will call me, what are you doing, bro? Are you at the gym or something? You know what I mean? Something. So I think when you build connections with agents and your circle of influence, anything can be a connection, whether it's like, hey, bro, you're going to do good today or be great today. Your circle of influence should not just be lifting you up with, here's a lead, but they should be lifting you up with words of not only wisdom, but words of greatness. So what I try to bring to the table is I try to connect people. I met Alfred a while back. We won't talk about that shit because that was a wild time when I met Alfred from the very beginning. So we'll keep that on the OnlyFans page. So if you don't want to subscribe, let me give you the address to my OnlyFans. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, I have Alfred. You always bring a lot of words of wisdom to people. And what I try to do is I try to do the same thing. I've connected Alfred with Tony. I've got connected to Tony. Last week we had a cigar mastermind. If you missed it, you missed something great because there was a lot of great minds at the table. But as a lender, I always expect to work with tenured agents that are not just going to hand off someone to me that has a pulse. Alfred, you and I talked about it. When you hand somebody off, what is a proper way to hand something off to someone? You're just not going to hand over somebody with a pulse.
No, absolutely. And I think number one is you got to learn how to fact find.
Right.
Asking the right questions, right? Sometimes agents treat lenders like a receptionist or like you're my assistant. I think when you learn how to ask the right questions, you get to find out who's qualified and who's disqualified.
Right.
Sometimes people need a little bump to maybe fix their credit, and maybe it's not the time for them to buy, but maybe 6 months from now, they're ready to go. See, I always talk about my favorite client, Victor. If you're watching this, Victor is one of my good friends. I'm not going to say his name. Victor, since I met him, said, Alfred, I want to buy a house. You know why I say Victor's my best client? He hasn't bought a house, but he sent me 9 referrals. So that's my best client. Sometimes the person is not ready to go, but if you treat them like a buyer, they're gonna buy sooner or later.
That's right.
And if you treat them right and you give them the service they deserve, they're gonna continue to bring you business.
Of course.
It's just that sometimes as agents we want that right now business. We
instant.
want that. Yeah, we want
Instant
that instant
gratification.
gratification. We want to get paid in the 30, 60, 90 days. No. It doesn't work that way.
That's right.
There's a lot of stuff that I do in the dark that when the doors open, then I'm shining, right?
Right.
But a lot of people don't see the late nights.
Yes.
A lot of people don't know how many times a week I write my scripts. A lot of people don't know who my role play partners are. And that has a lot to do with our business, right? Because
Right.
80% of the sales made on the 5th and 12th contact.
That's right.
Your agent's always chasing the next new lead. They forget about the follow-up process. But in this business, Jesse, not everybody's meant to win, unfortunately.
Right.
It's a business that I think it's saturated. I think, before I got into real estate, I was a big fan of $1 Million Listing. That's actually how I got into the business, watching
Wow.
the show. And speeded up the show. I learned that being in this business, I became full-time during COVID. A lot of us got COVID spoiled, right? And you can sell a house to anybody with a pulse.
That's right.
Right.
Right now, this market, the 2025 market, is for the working agent.
That's right.
The agent that separates himself from everybody else, not the copy and paste version, not the one who's rapping or dancing. That was all great, but that is a trend. That is not going to work. I've never been to a listing where I'm rapping or dancing my way into the house.
Right.
I might be dancing the way out of the house once they sign the listing agreement.
How about dancing your way to the bank?
That's another one, being in the nightclub business. I remember one of my old friends said, Alfred, how come I don't see you at the clubs anymore? And I say, well, how come I don't see you at the bank?
There you go.
Oh. Yeah, keep it real.
I had to let
That's
go
right.
of that of that life. But you know what I like about that life? I was always dressed professional, always wearing 3-piece suits, always came from a place of service. So, I always say my competition sucks, guys.
Yeah.
It really is. There's nobody outworking me. I always talk about myself because I don't like to compare myself with others.
Yeah.
Plus, I have friends in this business that I wouldn't never want to put anybody down.
Right.
That's not the case. I always talk like in a third person, right?
Yeah.
My competition sucks, and I'm talking about myself. I always say if I could get 1% better every day,
Right.
I'm always going to get better, right? I get better faster, more efficient, leveraging other people, trusting the process. You got to trust the process. You got to trust that your CRM is working. You got to trust that your assistant is following up. If you don't have that, maybe an AI that answers your calls, right?
Of course.
I used to get a bunch of garbage calls, and now I have my AI. She takes the phone calls. I have an assistant where I used to pay monthly. Now she's on my phone, and I can ask her any questions. She can answer me. She makes me the expert on anything in multiple languages, right? But I build my own AI.
Yeah.
But I put in the work.
That's right.
I'm part of a company called Digital Dungeons, and it's a platform that was developed by Quentin Ford. Hey, what's up, Quentin? And he's teaching me all the stuff, but he used to work for Apple computers and all that. So he's very techie. I'm not a nerd, but I know I'm very techie, and I love technology.
Right.
Because it's evolving, and I'm telling you, right now in the next 2 to 5 years, if you're not a techie agent, you're gonna get sliced in this business. Because I could push one button and contact 10,000 people in 1 hour.
Right.
Versus smiling and dialing, which I'm a big fan of because you still got to learn how to close. But in this business, I think the word adaptability comes to my mind right away.
Oh, yeah.
You need to adapt or you're going to die.
That's right.
Plain and simple.
And dialing for dollars. I know you do that a lot, Tony. You do a lot of dialing for dollars, and that keeps you busy. But I know you also take advantage of the technology. But I know right now you're trying to level up your technology as well. So how's that going?
And see, on that note, that's why we're here doing this podcast. We're here with Alfred. And once again, a shout out to you, Jesse, for putting together that cigar mastermind. Because of that opportunity from us being around other like-minded individuals,
right,
I was able to connect with Alfred. And now we're talking about how we can leverage off each other, learn, right? Because growing is learning.
Right.
So it's key, as you mentioned. And the technology is something that's very key that you have to change because you have to adapt to the times. So what even worked 6 months ago may not be working now.
Right.
Right. So you always have to be testing, right? This may work. This may
Stay
not
ahead
work.
of the game.
Absolutely. But if you don't try, right, try and fail, you don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work. It's like you mentioned KPI, tracking your numbers, knowing where your business is coming from, and the money is in the follow-up.
Right.
As we were talking about, a lot of agents want the instant gratification. They want, oh, I picked up the phone, got this listing, picked up the buyer. That happens in rare occasions. But the money comes into the 5th and the 12th attempt in doing the follow-up. So you got to have those systems in place that are going to keep you in front of your prospects, in front of sellers. That's one of the keys as, top agents in the industry are listing agents, right? If he who controls the market controls the inventory, yes, we love buyers. We're going to work with buyers, but it's all about inventory and making sure that you're able to have your marketing systems in place to have sellers calling you.
Right.
So you're not just prospecting, calling out, but you want to get to a point that we're all working for, right?
You're inbound.
Exactly. The key is having those inbound calls because of the amount of time you've put into prospecting.
Of course.
Being on social, cold calling, sending out postcards, door knocking, whatever you're doing, the key is to double down, do it. But the key is being in front of people, creating your brand. Something that was said is our own competition is ourselves, right? So my biggest competition is myself. So at the end of the day, before I go to bed, I have to look myself in the mirror and said, was I the best Tony the broker today? Mm-hmm. Could I have stayed an extra hour? Could I have made that extra call? First in the office, last out. I'm always making it a point, as long with, I know Jesse's doing it, Alfred, all the top agents out there are actually finding ways and putting in the hours that people don't see. People don't see the blood, sweat, and tears. People don't see when you're trying to, as you mentioned, revamp your scripts, change up marketing techniques, follow-up systems. What could I have done better? And I believe it was Michael Jordan that said he could have made 100 shots in a game, but when he watched the tape, what was the one shot that I missed? How could I have revamped my shot to have made that? And that's what a lot of the heavy hitters, the top producers do is, yes, I may have X amount of deals in escrow, but what could I have done to have converted that last prospect into a deal? So it's always looking at yourself and saying, did I do the best today? And if I didn't, guess what? Tomorrow's a new day, and I'm going to make sure that I improve. And it's about consistency and learning how to be a better version of yourself every day, being consistent in what you do, but at the same time learning and growing and being around masterminded and like-minded individuals, which is key, because your net worth is your network.
Exactly.
So
who you smoke with matters. That's what we said at the mastermind last week,
That's right.
And I truly believe, competition starts at the bottom and the people at the top are collaborating. That's exactly what we've been doing lately. And Alfred, you said something, key word was leverage. As a lender, I try to leverage every handshake. I'm always networking. I'm trying to see the who's who. When I shake hands, what do you do? And let me see if this person has value. Because I want to bring value to my agents. I want to brand them on social media. I want to showcase their open house. I want to follow up on their buyers that they have and continue following up until they tell me no. If they say no or we just can't do something, then it doesn't mean that's the end of a relationship, because that person can probably recommend somebody else, just like your boy.
Yeah.
9 people that they recommended, even though he didn't buy a house. You know?
And like Tony was saying a couple of things that I was like, that makes a lot of sense. It's funny being in this business. You see all these events going on and
Right.
you have all these panelists. Then I go look them up because I'm just that guy. You say you're a top producer. I want to see if you're a top producer. And I look at their numbers. I'm like, wait a minute. You're in real estate is a funny industry, and you have all these panelists that are always at events hanging out, but then you go look at the numbers. I'm like, well, what are they selling?
Yeah.
But they're telling other agents how to sell,
Right.
Which I have a problem with, because there's a lot of gurus in our business.
Of course.
And I always tell myself, listen, my job right here at Century 21 is to give value.
Right.
Whether you're part of Century 21 or not, the door is open. That's why I love working for Felix, our broker, right? And in this business, there's so much room to get better and better and better.
Right.
And you guys see everything that I'm working. I have my own lead source company that I'm
course.
putting together.
Nice.
Click to close coming soon, and then also my own digital library, because I repeat myself so much that people ask me so many questions that I'm putting everything on a digital library. I'm putting it on digital PDFs, and I'm just gonna give it away for free, bro.
There you go.
My job is to help at least 500 to 1,000 agents before I leave this business. Because I love real estate, but my heart is doing something else. Like, I love this business. This is just a vehicle for me.
That's right.
Because I've never been to a retirement party. And if you're a realtor retiring, please invite me, because I only business is so small,
To the
but I don't
retirement
see
party?
nobody retiring.
Yeah.
I mean, real estate, we're always going to be in real estate, right? We're going
Right.
to lay our heads in real estate when we go to sleep at home.
Of course.
But real estate is an awesome vehicle that if you really put in the work and you got to do what you got to do, it's going to come to you. But if you don't, it's rented. Real estate wants its rent pay every day.
That's right.
Right.
You cannot be a part-time agent with full-time benefits and expect, like, oh my God, well, why is he doing better than me and I'm doing the same things? But you don't know what they're doing when they leave the office.
That's right.
Right.
And that's another issue, right, in this business, because we could talk about all the glamour, the systems, the
Right.
tools, and all the beautiful stuff that comes, but you can't be an agent like where you leave and then the phone rings and you don't pick up the call.
Of course.
Because that call is going to come in when you least expect it.
That's right.
And I always say you're only one contact away from the next big break.
One
Oh, yeah.
handshake
All
away
it takes
for doors
is
of
one time to
opportunities.
get lucky, right, to hit the
Yes.
lotto.
Yes.
One call can change everything for you. So
And that's what we're saying, Tony, you and I. We're saying, one opportunity, one handshake can open up doors to opportunities. And I keep that mindset, whether I'm in the supermarket or whether I'm at a networking event. So, yeah, that's all. That's something that I truly believe in. One handshake opens the doors to opportunities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what happens in the next 5 years, right? We're all challenging ourselves.
Let's go.
We need to grow. If you're not growing, you're dying, man.
That's
and let's
it.
see what happens in the
If
next
you are
6
the
months.
smartest man in the room, you're in the wrong room, because that means that you are the smartest in the room and there's no opportunity for growth.
No, absolutely not,
So,
man. So
But
I can't wait for the next episode, right?
Yes.
And part of it, as you guys know, rest in peace to Kobe Bryant.
yes,
That Mamba mentality,
yes,
a constant quest to be the best is to be the best version of yourself.
yes,
So remember,
right.
if you're not challenging yourself every day, don't look around you as far as what is this person doing, what is that person doing. Yes, competition is healthy, but compete against yourself.
Right.
How can I double up my production?
Yeah.
How can I double up my resources? How can I make sure that I'm doing the best that I can tomorrow than I did today, than I was yesterday? So remember, stay positive, stay focused, have lions in your circle, and let's make it happen.
yeah. Don't be
That's
afraid to
right.
learn from each other. That's one thing. So I'm glad that you guys got a chance to I'm glad that we all got a chance to chop it up today. Until
Hey.
next time.
Invite them to the next sales training, Jesse.
Yes,
You're the
next sales
connector.
training. Alfred, next Tuesday?
That's right. We're talking about the sales process. It's the greeting, the fact finding, the
Yes.
demo, and then the close. Because if
Boom.
you can't close,
Let's go.
you're not going to get paid.
Coffees for
Yes.
closers, baby. Remember
Yes.
that.
That's right. Let's go.
Until next time, I am the Mortgage Lion 824 on all platforms.
And I am the GOAT.
And I'm Tony the broker. Let's go, baby.
Lines
go.
only, baby. Let's get it.
Boom.
Bing, bing, bing.
Alfred always has these little shots, bro.
Yeah, that was sick. That was
time,
perfect.
Last time we did a lines only, I said lines only, and Alfred's going, rawr. I was like, what the hell? That was funny.